Hello, friend. I'm genuinely glad you've chosen to be here for this, and I'd be even happier if you stuck around by subscribing. That would honestly make my day. All right, let's get into it. I had barely lifted my glass for the toast when she struck. The faint chime of crystal still lingered in the air when Carolyn, standing beside me in her father's richly wood-paneled study, cleared her throat with surgical precision. The murmur of the room fell away. A moment before, my words had felt warm and alive. Now they hovered awkwardly, thinning like smoke from a candle just snuffed out. "First, thank you all for coming," she began, voice cool and deliberate. "And I'm pleased to announce that my father's estate is now officially in my hands. As his only heir, I'll be continuing his work exactly as he would have wanted." A wave of whispers rolled through the gathering. I stayed rooted in place, bracing. She wasn't finished. "And also," she said, scanning the room with predatory patience, "Adam and I are getting a divorce. It's mutual." Gasps. A couple of uneasy chuckles from people convinced it was a bad joke. Then silence, thick, suffocating. I didn't drop the glass, but my fingers clenched the stem so hard my knuckles whitened. "Carolyn," I said evenly, forcing a smile that made my jaw ache, "could we talk in private for a moment?" She tilted her head with theatrical flair. "Don't make this about you, Adam. This day is for my father." Her father. The man whose suit I had buttoned for the last time. The man I had been honoring in my eulogy when she decided to slice me open in front of an audience. "I see," I murmured. "So this timing, pure coincidence?" Her gaze fixed on me, unwavering, frost in her eyes. Number I chose it. The air seemed to chill instantly. I could feel the crowd shifting, feigning disinterest while hanging on every word. Carolyn had always been a master of commanding attention. Years in PR had honed her perfectly. But this wasn't a presentation. This was a calculated demolition. "You're trying to humiliate me," I said under my breath. "I'm trying to be honest," she countered, her eyes shining now. "We agreed. No more pretending, no more polite lies." I glanced at the portrait above the mantel, her father's severe stare burning into us like a silent witness. "And you decided this was the stage for that truth?" "It's overdue," she replied with a casual shrug. "Better than hiding it in private, don't you think?" I turned my eyes to the crowd, colleagues, old friends, distant relatives, and felt humiliation burn through me like fire under the skin. "You'll keep the house, the money, the vineyard," I murmured so only she could hear. "But you've just traded away your dignity for a few gasps." Her lips curved faintly. "I don't need dignity. I need freedom." And then she was gone, leaving me mid-toast before a silent room with my heart splintering in slow motion. "My name's Adam. I'm 42. I work in software licensing in Monterey. Not glamorous, but it paid enough to cover the mortgage on the Victorian we once loved. Wine-colored shutters, wrap-around porch, every detail hand-picked. Carolyn had been the architect of our life together, plotting every element down to the garnish on a canapé. She used to say I was her calm in the storm. Lately, the storms had turned into full-blown hurricanes, without warning. 6 years married, no kids, 2 cats, only one halfway liked me. I cooked, she styled the home, I mowed the lawn, she hosted brunches with military precision. We worked, until we didn't. I'd seen cracks forming beneath her polished veneer, but nothing prepared me for that afternoon, her turning a memorial into my public execution. Strangely, I didn't crumble, not on the outside. Somewhere between the chime of that glass and her last syllable, something new formed inside me, hard, sharp. If she wanted theater, I'd give her theater, but I'd be the one rewriting the script. 3 days later, I found myself in the conference room of Roth and Klein, staring at a framed painting of a gavel. The place smelled faintly of old coffee and quiet deceit. From the windows, Monterey Bay stretched out in perfect view. Carolyn didn't so much as glance at it. She had arrived in a cream silk blouse, hair immaculate, makeup flawless, lips painted with a pink that whispered innocence. I almost respected the dedication. Almost. "So," began Gideon Roth, an attorney whose warmth rivaled polished granite. The transfer of your father's estate is now complete. Ms. Monroe, he began, but Carolyn corrected softly, Mrs. He flicked a glance at me before continuing. Everything is in your name now. Real estate, liquid assets, the vineyard's equity. Carolyn lowered her eyes in a show of humility. Exactly as he wished. And you still intend to proceed with the divorce? Roth asked, leafing through a folder. We'll have to observe the marital agreement. There's a sunset clause. Sunset clause? She repeated. I stayed quiet, waiting. Yes, Roth explained. Your father inserted a condition. If you file for divorce within 12 months of his death, the estate reverts to a charitable trust. Everything. It's meant to prevent rash decisions. Her smile wavered, just slightly, but enough for me to see it. A fracture in the porcelain. She blinked twice. That's impossible. It's binding, he replied. For the first time she met my gaze. I gave her nothing. She inhaled, steadying herself. Then perhaps we should wait. Keep up appearances. People talk if you rush during grief. I leaned forward, mirroring her posture. You want to try again? For the public, she said, with the faintest curl of her lips. And maybe for us, too. It was a moment as fragile as spun glass. I nodded slowly. Fair enough. Her fingertips brushed mine, and for a split second it almost felt like the start of something new. Almost. But I knew better. This wasn't reconciliation. It was strategy. A pause in her campaign to bend the rules. Outside, the coastal wind tugged at my jacket. She was still inside, probably grilling the paralegal about the clause's Loctite language. I caught my reflection in the car window. Tired eyes, tense jaw, but something new glinting faintly behind them. Clarity. She believed she was pulling me back under her control, keeping the mask in place long enough to safeguard the fortune. But her timing was flawed. Because while she was rehearsing her lines, I was already drafting an entirely new play. Let her think I'm playing along. Let her think she still holds the reins. The longer she pretends, the more rope she hands me. And when the time comes, I'll be ready. By the time I reached the apartment, the aroma had already claimed me. Rosemary and garlic drifting down the corridor, clinging to the air like a well-rehearsed memory. From inside, I caught the faint thread of Carolyn's humming, measured, deliberate, pitched just high enough to reach me, just low enough to feel casual. The melody was from an old jazz tune she used to scoff at. I'd always liked it. This was her way of repainting the cracks, as if setting a fresh stage could erase the fractures. Hi, love, she called, waist cinched in an apron, the picture of a lifestyle magazine cover. Dinner's nearly done. Thought we'd eat out on the porch tonight, just like before. I let my gaze stay on her a fraction too long. The table had already been dressed, wine glasses gleaming, napkins folded with precision. She hadn't done this halfway. Smells incredible, I said. Chicken with lemon risotto, she replied, her smile carrying the warmth of a honeymoon photograph. I shed my jacket, loosened my tie, and stepped into the scene like a man auditioning for the role of someone who still believed in it. Every approving nod, every faint grin, she caught them and held them close. I let silences stretch just enough to keep her leaning forward. She brushed my wrist while pouring wine, drifting into a story about her father, how much he'd loved the bay, how proud he'd be of us. I sipped slowly, letting her construct the reality she wanted. Beneath the table, my foot kept a steady beat, quiet, deliberate. Tomorrow would be the start of something different. At dawn, I stepped into the garage and made the call. Ray, I said, still licensed? Still know how to keep things quiet? Ray Mercer had been in my orbit since college, once a bartender at the student dive, then into insurance scams, now a private investigator. Eyes like a hawk, mind like a vault, zero appetite for moralizing. You could ask him to shadow someone, and the only follow-up would be, when and where. I'm here, he said. Free. Who's the target? My wife. A breath's pause. Send me a photo and her routine. I'll take it from there. When I re-entered the kitchen, Carolyn was tearing basil leaves over the counter. She looked up, smiling. You're up early, she said. Couldn't sleep, I answered. She brushed a stray thread from my shirt. I'm glad we're making this effort. I really am. I nodded, but the kiss she placed on my cheek wasn't love. It was a check for cracks in my performance. By mid-afternoon, she was settled on the couch, surrounded by photo albums. She opened to our Portland trip, me with an arm around her at the lighthouse, her cheeks flushed from wind. Remember getting lost looking for that crab place? She asked. 2 hours wandering, I said. You nearly pitched your phone into the water. She laughed for real that time, but her gaze still flicked over my face, measuring. That evening she nestled against me, legs tucked under mine, sipping wine. She spoke of roses for the garden, repainting the guest room, murmured, Feels right again, doesn't it? Yeah, I said, though in my head I was arranging a ledger. Her appointments, the blank spaces, the therapy nights, the long showers, the lipstick she'd abandoned years ago. I gave her no reaction, no accusation, just room for her act to play on. I logged everything. The hour she rose, the wine she favored, even the way she folded laundry now. When Thursday came and she left for another session, I kissed her forehead and wished her good night. She left smiling. I shut the door, leaving that smile in her possession. For now. Tomorrow, Ray would begin. Carolyn thought this was her stage. She'd forgotten who designed the scenery. Every show has its finale, and I'd be sitting front row. By Saturday, Ray's voice came through my phone as flat as if reading the news. She's not going to therapy, he said. Unless therapy's now at the Monaco Inn. She meeting someone? Yeah, a guy in his early 30s, fit, trim beard, dark blue Audi. They don't arrive together, but they leave as a pair. Not exactly hiding it. Got pictures. Send them. Keep her under watch. I want her full routine. Understood. That afternoon, she came in swinging a paper bag of organic groceries, glowing like she was about to film a cooking show. She kissed my cheek, uncorked a new bottle of wine. We unpacked side by side, discussing adopting a dog like we were still planning a shared life. That night, she fell asleep against me while a crime documentary flickered across the room. Her face was calm, her breathing easy, but it felt rehearsed. I eased her onto the couch and went to the garage, laptop waiting. The email was there. I opened the folder. Carolyn, in her tan coat, laughing in a hotel parking lot. Beside her, a man at least 10 years younger, leaning in, hand nearly touching hers. Another shot, behind a hedge, captured them kissing. No panic, no shame. Just two people savoring a victory. I clicked through each frame one by one, closed the lid. The sting wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was a sharper edge. Proof. Inside, the house was dark except for the television's blue glow spilling over the walls. I passed her on the couch, poured myself water in the kitchen, and leaned against the counter. For the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter. This wasn't loss. It was clarity. She'd made the first move. Now I'd make mine. In the mornings, she hummed again. Soft little notes between pouring coffee and frying eggs. Fresh flowers began appearing in vases, replaced every few days, as if beauty could anchor the illusion. The lilies she once claimed triggered her allergies now stood in a vase on the windowsill. I didn't mention the contradiction. I just watched. By that time, I'd begun keeping notes. Not in some elegant leather-bound diary, but in a plain black notebook. The kind that fit neatly into the inside pocket of my coat alongside a simple ballpoint pen. I documented everything. Dates, times, her precise phrasing. The way her head tilted when she asked if I'd be home early. She was crafting a nest, or rather, the illusion of one. That Thursday morning, a note rested beside my plate of eggs and toast. Weekend in Carmel. Just the two of us. Think we need it? Beneath it, I wrote, Sure. She found my reply during lunch and kissed the top of my head when I stepped in from the garage. I knew you'd say yes, she said, her smile switching on like a light. Of course she knew. Carolyn always thought several moves ahead, except when she tripped over her own self-regard. What she failed to realize was that I was already operating far beyond her script. I recorded everything. The shift in her perfume, the sudden fixation on calories, the subtle way she angled her phone screen downward when I entered the room. Even at night, when she curled closer and whispered lines like, "I dreamed we were flying together somewhere," it went into the book. Not because I needed evidence for court, but because it kept me anchored to the truth beneath her satin sheets and polished charm. It also allowed me to play the role she believed she was directing. I cooked more. She fawned. I brought home wine. She poured it with a gesture like she was blessing a congregation. Once she was asleep, her arm draped across my chest. I'd wait a quarter of an hour, then slip away to jot down every detail: her outfit, her tone, the expressions that betrayed her words. Pretending is tiring, and Carolyn, no matter how composed, wasn't built for endurance. By the third week, the seams began to show. It started with a misstep at dinner. I told Sarah, that the tile looked better in daylight. Then a text left in view for a second too long, a heart emoji from a number she hadn't saved. I didn't react. I simply noted it down. The trick wasn't in confronting her, it was in waiting. She thought she'd reclaimed the dynamic, reshaping us into the version she preferred. She believed her glow, polished by candlelight and second chances, had worked. And in a way, it had. Just not in her favor. The calmer I remained, the more she revealed. When she began scattering glossy brochures for Napa Spa weekends and exclusive vineyard suites, I knew she was pushing the edges of her act, testing how far she could perform before the curtain dropped. That night, she mentioned Carmel again. She curled against me on the couch, tracing lazy patterns along my arm. "I think it could really help," she murmured. "Bring us back to what we had." I kissed the top of her head. "You're right." She exhaled deeply and shut her eyes. In the dim light, I stared past her at the ceiling. This trip wouldn't fix us. It would pin her to the truth she'd been rewriting. Let her arrange it. Let her paint it with smiles. Every detail went into my notebook, bringing me closer to the moment the truth would surface. The turning point came on a Tuesday night. She came down the stairs in a red dress I'd never seen before, tailored tight in deliberate places, her hair swept up, heels clicking sharp against the floor. "How do I look?" she asked, spinning slowly, smoothing her hands along her sides like she was unwrapping a gift. I set down my water and let my eyes linger a beat too long. "It's bold." Her smile wavered. "Bold?" I shrugged. "A bit loud. But if you like it, that's what matters." The air stiffened between us. Her gaze darkened, not with pain, but with offense. "You used to say I looked amazing in red." "I used to say a lot of things," I said, my voice flat. Her poise faltered. Her hands went to her hips, her mouth tightening. "So that's it?" I try to make things better, and you cut me down. "I didn't cut you down." "You know exactly what you're doing," she shot back. "You sit there, silent, letting me make all the effort, then throw in your smug little jabs." I said nothing. That silence pulled her forward. She gestured sharply, stepping closer. "Do you even want this to work, or are you just enjoying punishing me?" I stood, my tone calm. "You're upset because I didn't feed the illusion." Her lips parted, then closed. "I didn't insult the dress, Carolyn. I just didn't worship it." She stared, her breath coming faster. Then she spun and stormed upstairs, every step like a slammed door. I stayed where I was, listening to the sound of drawers sliding open, a closet door shutting with deliberate force. Sitting back down, I wrote a single line. "When the mask breaks, it howls." Later, we crossed paths in the hallway. She didn't look at me, just swept past, her perfume lingering longer than she did. But I caught the fury in her eyes, the awareness that she was losing ground she thought secure. I went to bed early, leaving her to stew. She assumed the argument would reset the stage. She didn't see it had ended the play. The bar I picked was intentional. Low light, enough ambient noise to disappear into, but quiet enough to catch every word. I sat at the far end, ordered a whiskey neat, and waited. Seth entered like a man trying out for a part, shirt pressed, nervous hands smoothing it down. He scanned the place, uncertain why he'd even agreed to meet. When he spotted me, I raised my glass in a small salute. His jaw tightened, but he came over. "Adam," he said, voice careful. I nodded. "Seth, sit." He hesitated, then took the stool beside me, ordered a beer, and kept his eyes fixed on the bar's mirror. "I don't know what you want," he said. "Fair," I replied, swirling my drink. "You're sleeping with my wife. Probably not the chat you had in mind." He tensed. "I didn't know she was—" "Don't," I interrupted, not angry, just certain. "You knew, maybe not instantly, but soon enough to keep it hidden." He stayed quiet. I let the silence settle before saying lightly, "Ever heard of a conditional retention clause in a will?" His brow furrowed. "A what?" I leaned in slightly. "Her father left her everything, the house, the vineyard, the money. But he was shrewd. If she divorces within a year of his death, the whole lot goes to charity. Every penny, every bottle, every inch of flooring." Seth's face changed slowly, like a man realizing the tide had already carried him far from shore. "I didn't know that," he said. "No," I answered, "you didn't." He took a long pull from his beer, his grip tightening on the glass. "I'm not here to threaten you," I told him, my voice even. I didn't raise my voice, but I made sure he heard me without room for doubt. Staying with her means you're betting her entire inheritance on a losing hand. I have proof, pictures, messages, and a timeline precise enough to convince any judge in seconds. His breath caught, barely noticeable, but I saw it. "I'm filing for adultery," I said, quiet but certain. "The moment proceedings begin, she loses it all." That's when Seth finally met my gaze. "You'd ruin her life just like that?" he asked. I finished my drink in one swallow. "I'm not creating this ending, Seth. I'm just reading the script she's been writing all along." He had nothing to say, only stared into the gloss of the bar top like he might find some shred of dignity hidden there. I set a 20 on the counter and stood. "Think hard about your next step," I told him. "She isn't who you believe she is, and deep down, you already know that." He stayed silent, but I could see the realization take hold in his eyes. I didn't need to look back on my way out to know the fight was over. Seth wouldn't be a problem for much longer. And as for Carolyn, she was about to find out that the man she thought she could outmaneuver had just made his move. She arrived like a storm well past its peak, still loud, still forceful, but too late to matter. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames in the hallway. I kept my place in the kitchen, rinsing plates like it was any other night, not the prelude to the scene she was about to stage. "Where is he?" she demanded, hair wind-tangled, mascara smudged, eyes burning. I turned slowly from the sink. "Seth." Her glare tightened, as if my speaking his name had been a slap. "You told him," she accused, stepping forward. "You cornered him. You cornered me." Drying my hands, I leaned on the counter. "I told him the truth. That was enough." Her laugh was sharp, unsteady. "So now you think you're clever? A hero?" "No," I said evenly. "I just stopped pretending I was blind." Her fists clenched, lips quivering with rage rather than sorrow. "He left me," she spat. "Right there in the parking lot. Said he wouldn't be part of a con. Said I was reckless." I poured a glass of water and set it between us like a peace offering I knew she wouldn't accept. She didn't touch it. "You've destroyed everything," she said, voice frayed, low. "All I wanted was to keep what I worked for." "You didn't work for it, Carolyn. You married into it, and then schemed to hold it." "I loved you," she barked, but the conviction evaporated halfway through. I studied her, smeared makeup, unsteady breathing, anger masking panic. This wasn't heartbreak. It was the shock of losing control. "You can stay the night," I said at last. "Couch or guest room, your choice, or you can leave." "You're throwing me out?" she asked, wounded pride in her voice. "I'm giving you options," I replied, sipping my water. "More than you gave me when you torched everything at your father's funeral." Her arms fell to her sides. "I was scared," she murmured. I thought I could fix it." "You weren't scared," I said. "You were greedy." We stood in a silence packed with months of unsaid truths. She finally turned toward the stairs but stopped at the bottom. "Where did you go tonight?" Her tone was softer now. "The bar," I said. "Had a drink. Talked to someone who knows more about your therapy sessions than your therapist ever did." Her eyes flickered. I didn't add another word. She climbed the stairs slowly, disappearing into the bathroom with the faint sound of fabric and the creak of the door. When the house fell quiet, I locked the front door. Whatever she believed, we still had ended the day she dragged our ruin into a room full of mourners. I wasn't angry. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was done. And I suspected that scared her more than anything. The next morning, she appeared in champagne silk, low-cut, loose, designed for distraction. The sort of thing she wore when we still traded looks across crowded rooms, back when silence was comfortable and a touch meant something. She leaned against the doorway, one arm raised above her head, feigning effortless allure, as if last night hadn't happened. "Morning," she said, her voice warm with suggestion. "We could take the day slow." I kept reading the paper, coffee in hand. She crossed the kitchen barefoot, perfume trailing like a strategy, and settled into the chair across from me. Chin propped on her hand, she said softly, "We can still make this work. Fool the court. Keep the money. Play the part for a little while longer." I set the paper down and really looked at her. She smiled, deliberate, waiting for me to bend. "I'm a hell of an actress," she added. "And you? You've been better at this than I gave you credit for." I stood, mug in hand, and moved to the coffee machine. "You're still running the same game," I said. "It's not a game," she insisted. "It's survival." "No," I told her. "Survival is enduring loss and holding on to what matters. What you're doing is just gambling with a new excuse." Her smile faltered. I folded my arms. "I'm not for sale, Carolyn. Not my principles, not my name." Her eyes sharpened, but then her voice rose. "I gave you the best years of my life. I gave up everything for us. You built something next to me, not with me," I said. Her gaze hardened, shining with frustrated rage. She grabbed the untouched water from the table and hurled it into the sink. Glass shattered across the floor. A shard landed by my foot. I didn't move. She stared at the pieces as though they might knit themselves back together. I passed her, picked up my notebook from the side table and tapped it. "This," I said, "is everything." Suspicion narrowed her eyes. "What is it?" "The truth," I said. "Dates, times, facts, all the things you tried to hide under perfume and charm." "You can't." "I can," I interrupted, "and I will. In court, I won't need to shout or lie. I won't twist anything. I'll just put the truth on display." Her face paled beneath the makeup. For once, she had no answer. "This was never a quest for payback," I said evenly. "It's about recognizing the truth for what it is." I didn't wait for a reaction. I turned and walked out, the echo of my steps fading into the corridor. Behind me, a faint, dull sound, her knees hitting the floor, reached my ears, followed by a muffled sob she likely thought I wouldn't hear. But I did, and I kept moving. The courtroom's air was cool in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. 2 benches ahead, Carolyn sat impeccably dressed in a navy suit, pearls resting at her collarbone, her spine straight as if the posture alone could steady her. She hadn't looked over once, not when I entered, not during the polite exchanges between counsel and the judge. Not even when her fingers trembled over her notepad, pretending to jot something down. She must have believed that avoiding my gaze would protect her. But no distance is far enough to erase established fact. My lawyer, Matthew Gresham, a man of few but precise words whose eyes seemed to miss nothing, rose to speak first. His introduction was measured and exact, like someone telling a story you wish you could put down but can't. "Your Honor," he began. "My client stands here not for vengeance, but for truth." He presented the first exhibit, a photograph of Carolyn and Seth, arm in arm outside the Monaco Inn. Exhibit A. The timestamp placed it 2 weeks into what she had claimed were reconciliation meetings with me, evidence that told another version of events. The judge's expression remained unreadable, though he leaned back slightly in his chair. Matthew continued. Exhibits B through F followed. Dated logs, call records, text messages, hotel receipts, all acquired within the bounds of the law. I didn't glance her way, but I could feel her shrinking. Then came the journal. "Your Honor," Matthew said, "this is Mr. Monroe's personal record, a series of entries tracking changes in behavior and feeling. It was kept not as leverage, but as a means of survival." The clerk carried it to the bench. The judge leafed through it until his brow tightened almost imperceptibly. He read aloud from an entry written 3 weeks after her public scene at the funeral. She told me, "I want us to feel close again." That same night, she went to meet him. When she returned, I made her tea. She smiled. I noted the smile, not for what it was, but for what it concealed. The room was utterly still. No coughs, no shifting in seats, only the kind of silence that comes when everyone holds their breath. Carolyn's attorney stood, fishing for something to grasp. "Your Honor, while the marriage suffered from serious communication breakdowns and my client's choices may have been misguided, the clause in the will created unreasonable—" The judge cut in. "The clause is valid. The evidence of infidelity is decisive." He turned slightly toward Carolyn. "You filed for divorce less than a year after your father's death. Under the estate terms, you forfeit your inheritance." No gavel strike came, but the decision landed with finality. Carolyn rose slowly, as though composure might somehow alter the verdict. "Your Honor, This court is not your stage, Mrs. Monroe," the judge interrupted. The matter was settled. She passed me on her way out, eyes searching for some last thread to pull, some chance to alter the ending. I gave her nothing, not pity, not anger, not even a glance. Outside, the sun stretched across the courthouse steps, and for the first time in months, I stepped into it without a shadow trailing me. A year on, I've grown accustomed to the quiet of the library, not the oppressive silence that once filled the space between Carolyn and me, but a calm threaded with resolution. I volunteer a few hours each week mentoring local law students, off-the-record conversations, pointing them toward the cases that reveal the raw edges of human nature. I still drink my tea black as I did throughout the trial, though it feels lighter now. A tap on the glass wall draws me back. Janelle, the librarian, smiling apologetically. "Sorry to disturb you, Adam. Someone left this for you at the desk." She hands me a plain manila envelope. Inside is a clipped newspaper article, small enough to be overlooked beneath a headline about a community garden. Former heiress Carolyn Monroe reportedly living with friends in Salinas after losing her home to foreclosure. Sources claim she's struggled to find steady work since the ruling. I study the clipping for a while. The accompanying photo, likely years old, shows her polished and self-assured, the image she kept up long after reality began to crumble. I fold the article twice and place it at the bottom of my drawer. There's no sense of triumph in seeing her fall, only a quiet acknowledgement. Some people don't realize what they have until it's gone, until it picks up its truths, walks into a courtroom, and doesn't look back. Her downfall isn't my win, but my peace lies in knowing I never had to raise my voice to be understood. I finish my tea. Outside, students gather on the grass, laughing and juggling their books. Caleb, one of the sharpest among them, catches my eye through the glass and waves. I motion for him to come in. Before closing the folder on my desk, I murmur, "Leave the past where it belongs." I glance through the window once more. The Monterey sky is clear, above me and within me. For the first time in years, it feels like mine.